Good evening, ladies and gents, or good morning, or whatever it is you're from. It's Lauren Pansy Scott here, and I thought rather than doing the commentary, because you can see right now there is a game going on. It is Hellraisers up against Virtus Pro, and it's mostly in honor of Virtus Pro right now. I thought we'd have a little refresher. I actually haven't seen much of this demo, so I thought I'd whack it on. We can have a little chat about what happened the weekend just passed. This is kind of a vlog, so if you're not into that and you just want casting or gameplay content, cut it right now, and I'll take no offense. So basically, what I wanted to discuss mostly was G3. So the event that just happened on the weekend. So Gfinity G3, hosted in London, my hometown. Very proud of that. And congratulations, obviously, to Virtus Pro picking up the win over Titan in the finals. But to me, it was a really contrasting event in the way it kind of ran through. So, for example, some of the games were phenomenal. They're what you'd really want out of a tournament that you don't always get. Recently we've been very, I wouldn't say lucky, luck's not always involved. I'm pretty blessed with the content we got coming out. So from these tournaments, so for example, Virtus Pro Tours Katowice, or how Dignitas went on this huge tear through Gfinity and finally got halted in a really fantastic game. But to me, it was complete contrast because the actual event, as a caster myself, I found very frustrating at times. And I think we all saw the threads, we all saw the topics, and the biggest issue to me is that, as someone who occasionally will be involved in the running of these sort of events, that if it's not put coherently across, people tend to ignore a lot of it. And it's partly our fault as a community for being so pitchforky at times. It's something like everything is wrong. We can't enjoy this ever again. Oh, it's kind of that attitude rather than like, okay, well, the event's done. Let's give them feedback. Let's, you know, not make a thread on HLTV or do this or do that. You got introduced to the guy at the very end, Martin. Okay, well, let's speak to him on Twitter, get, a contact email for this guy, and let's put all our feedback together and actually try and help this out because, the content provided by the teams was phenomenal, but everything outside that was a little bit, it felt like gaffer taped together, if that makes sense. There were moments where it was brilliant. I think the casting lineup was great. I think Chewy did so well. A lot of people didn't really mention Chewy. A lot of people got him confused with someone else at times, but I think Chewy did brilliantly at times. For a guy who's relatively new to the CSGO community, he did brilliantly. Stu, I think, to be fair, I actually thought Stu was a little rusty at times. I'm a big fan of Tosspot. I've loved his casting since Enemy Territory. I'm gonna be real honest with that. And it's always made me a little nervous when I work with him. I'm like, oh shit, I remember listening to this guy, and it's kind of, it brings it back real. But I think he was a little bit rusty. I don't know. Maybe maybe the venue or the producers just weren't hitting home with him, and he just had a little off to me. But Anders, same old Anders. No better than normal, but completely solid. Um, Henry G absolutely nailed it. Like I have this huge love for really good analysis. Um, Good analysis is so rare because I find it only really applicable from ex-players who are still relevant to an extent. So, Henry may not be the most relevant as others, but he still plays competitively. He's still been in teams recently, maybe not to the caliber that got him known prior, but and he's so coherent at bringing his opinions across. And if someone would work with him, nurture him to maybe get to the extent that I know other companies can do, he could be absolutely astounding. Um, and I find it really exciting when you hear new pro players really getting invested into casting. So for me, he was like my standout caster by a mile. And yeah, good analysis is hard to come by. Let's be honest here. Native English speaking, for one, is a godsend. I've got nothing against other languages, but just for broadcasting purposes, it's a lot easier in that sort of aspect. And I think Kyanite, once he calmed down a bit, he was a lot better. For the casters, I would love to do like a feedback session with all of them. I'm not saying I'm better than any of them. I think sometimes you just need to externalize it and watch yourselves back. I'll be interested to see how many of the casters actually sit there and go, okay, well, let me do some watching back of this myself, and because there's a lot of vocal people in the community saying, oh, we don't like this caster, we don't like that caster. I'd be really interested to see what the casters do actually to try and improve on that if they even take it on board, because there's some feedback you just gotta, oh, screw this guy, he's just being negative. But every here and there you'll be able to pick out comments. They'll be like, do you know what, my pacing was wrong, I was way too quick going into this round. So you'd see them building up maybe to they're faking out B, start building up the hype, but you knew they weren't going to hit that B site, you knew they were probably going to eventually rotate A, but you already built up the hype, so you're already up here. And I'd be interested to see how many people look back through it and go, actually, no, I need to slow my pace down a little bit here. I should, work on the way when it really does start kicking off, how I build that up. What adjectives do I want to use? Does my pace and my tone reflect that? And I'd love to see how many of them actually go back through it. But that aside, casting aside, the actual event itself is what I want to get towards, and some of the stuff that I found really really frustrating. And the thing was, it wasn't even the guys running its fault. It was the production quality was atrocious for me. It was more the fact that, for example, let's say big round just about to happen here for Hellraisers. They finally get that first round on the board. Yeah, of course, Virtus Pro picked up a pistol. They ran off the back of it, but it's always good. The team gets a little bit better. You can see the relief sometimes on their faces, like, no worries, it's not that 4-0 scoreline. We're just going to start to build. We're good right here. We're good. Same can be said for Virtus Pro, but you could tell they only had one camera. They, constantly put it on the wrong team in the wrong moments. And it was just stuff like this. Like, even if, before a game, the cameraman speaks to the analysis desk or the host saying, okay, guys, could you give me a quick list of, who's sitting where by player? Who's the guy who's emotional? Who's the guy who, if they win that round, will, look into the camera or, do something like that? Because the amount of times, excuse me, photographers for ESL will be like, hey, Lauren, I'm not really sure of this game. If it's Battlefield or something, they'll come to you like, okay, who really gets pumped up here? Who's the one who will look visibly emotional? Who's the one who'll give me that good camera shot? I'm like, okay, well, maybe check out Pasha. He's always pretty good for it. He'll be the guy to get pretty up for it. Or, Angel occasionally might even crack a smile if you're lucky. Mark a lot. Whoever it is, if there's someone to point out when it goes well, you got to give him a hand, and I don't see any of that was happening. There was no good reactions captured. It was never smooth transitioning, and I felt so bad for the casters as well, because you could tell they weren't being told when they're going back to camera or they're going back to them. It was just suddenly cut to casters in the middle of them. After a game when there's meant to be like the winning ceremony, or a victorious moment. Cut to casters. What? I want to see Titan, looking pretty happy. They just took down Fnatic 2-1 in the semi-finals, and I'm staring at Tosspot looking annoyed because he could clearly see he's back on camera. And it's like these production small things that you may overlook, or some people may overlook, just become so frustrating because the casters have to deal with this, and people are like giving these casters grief about how the show is running occasionally, and I would happily give criticism to these guys because I have to deal with it myself. But it's like it's so frustrating when everything goes wrong outside of your job because it affects you. At the end of the day, you're the guy on camera. You're the person that everyone sees with these mistakes, so they get blamed. That negative feeling will just be applied to them. It's like, oh well, everything's running late. There's delays, blah blah blah. It's not down to Tosspot or Anders, but that's the guy you see on the screen, so everyone gets frustrated at them, and I feel bad for them. It's annoying as hell to have. But the sound booths weren't actually soundproof at all. The thing, another big issue is, okay, I had the discussion actually with some of the writers about this, about how important it is, and is the value of actually getting the best soundproof booths available worth it? And I think it is, because I remember being at iSeries, at all these other events where, as a caster, we couldn't say anything, at all, because the teams could hear us. And we try and get around it as much as possible these days. We have those really expensive headsets, the helicopter pilot style headsets, the big Sennheiser ones, and as any way to remove it as much as possible, we try it. But to put the casters slap bang in the middle of the two teams right there, and it looked like it was a second thought. It looked like it wasn't thought over at all, and at the very least, they should be considering this. One call that gets through. This is one thing I was discussing with Riot, who are like, well, some of the writers who believe that they do enough. I was like, yeah, but what if that one call came through, that one okay, they're pushing mid lane right now. Oh, they're going for a sneaky Baron. If they heard the word Baron, would that set off, maybe them rotating, changing something up, doing something different? And I'm like, well, surely if you're making, a big profit by now, which obviously someone like Riot would be, it's worth to invest that much. But obviously there's limitations in, how much can be really soundproof. But that's for another day. But, to not even really try, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money on the line here. It's not like it's tuppences. And if literally, Stuart said right now, um, Taz and Pasha heading over towards B, but actually, Snacks is double backing towards A, 18 seconds left. Someone heard Snacks say, let's assume Doja then may not rotate off. Or the teams who speak native English or understand English better than others would have the advantage, and it's terrible to still have that in competition. And because I do work with an organizer, for an example, I know how hard sometimes it is to get over these technical issues, but you gotta damn try, you know what I mean? Like, it's not acceptable anymore. It really isn't in any way, shape, or form. And there's so many issues like this that just really should be eliminated by now. But then again, Gfinity haven't worked with CS or PC Call of Duty or any games like this because I'm gonna be real honest. I know Call of Duty to probably a higher extent than most, and that kind of includes console to an extent because I can compare the two. So, for example, for console COD, giving away calls and comms isn't so vital. The fast-paced round, even in Search and Destroy, the pacing of it is substantially different to every other Search and Destroy style game. They just go stupidly aggressive, and there's absolutely no reason as to why. It's ridiculous. But Fwiz getting super hyped up about something, you're screaming out, nade shots, going B with the bomb. Oh my god, it doesn't really matter, and they don't really have analysis either. So they're probably not used to having to deal with our adjustments. And then it's not like we're asking a lot, but it's certainly a little different in that sort of aspect. It's certainly a little bit more demanding in that way. But that's not a bad thing, it could benefit both scenes. And it's just the things that I've gotten used to through other tournaments. I was hoping to have in this one. I was hoping they'd do well. The stage looked good, but then the crowd shots looked atrocious. And I swear to God, there were canned cheering or it was bleeding across from the other stage because it sounded so fake. But the thing is, like, I hope the Gfinity look internally and look at, obviously the whole production and how it all looked and go, okay, this is within our budget. What can we chop and change without, some substantial cost being added into this and improve the show? Would it be, okay, we get the same production company, but we make sure they make a rundown of every single thing coming up? So, okay, Team A, Team versus Team B, start with the casters throw to game finishes, Team A wins, cut to, video or cut to, camera shot of Team A winning, cut back to casters, throw to hosts bring up bracket, this whole rundown of like every single graphic, where it comes in, the timing roughly, and just really tighten it up, because I've got to say it felt really loose, and I felt bad because you could tell when Sir Scoots was being told throw here or throw there, and he was halfway through a point, and it was the conversations were great between Richard occasionally and Thorin, and had this good back and forward, but it'd be nice to have like the graphics to back it up, it was like DreamHack trying harder but coming off worse. So, for example, DreamHack would use like a static graphic of the teams where it's just like Fetish standing there in his Doomtest t-shirt, and that's it. And Thorin would bring up these stats about it, how he's this great in-game leader. Sometimes he's really smart, blah blah blah. But it seems as though Gfinity wanted to try and use like mobile camera on these guys. They'd pan across to them, and it'd be the wrong player or the wrong side, or just stick on one guy, or just like zoom through them. And I get it, but you could also get around that by literally going, hey, Thorin, do you mind writing me a list of the player names in a row? So when you say, okay, let's look at Scream, I'll be like, okay, that's the third guy in from the left, cool. Whatever. There's ways around it. And it just felt like this half-assed attempt. And it's such a shame because the actual games were phenomenal. Like, I wish even just in-game pips, so picture in picture, just the, where the health bars are right now, just below that, where Angel are and Snacks are, just the two little in-game things, two teams set up. Even if it's just a GoPro cam or like a little webcam, just or anything set up there. It doesn't have to be like 1080p quality. Jesus, just when big rounds come in, it's always cool to look down and see that Snacks is getting pumped up, and more player interviews using the players there, because it felt very untouched. It was like this really like cut-off point of like, okay, this is talent, this is teams. We don't interact, we don't do anything like that. And it's like, come on, use these players, talk to them. If it's a big win coming out, then if you saw how much it meant to Taz at the end, that guy, he's one of the most emotional guys. That's what you want in esports. It's so rare you get people who are like very emotional and very like invested into it. Get him, get an interview. At the end of it, you could tell they're running over time. You tell they're running late. I get that, but still, rather than leaving Stuart and Anders to fill for 30 seconds. We give them the moment. Okay, let's head over to the analysis desk with Taz and Thorin sitting down for a quick chat once they've done the ceremony or something. It just found it very frustrating. Like I think there was like I caught one interview with one of the Dig guys, and some of the content he was even just discussing them was great. It was really good to hear. How they never felt they were playing this good. They finally beat NIP, the team that always stopped them, either in the quarters or semi-finals, which kind of hindered their growth. And it's like, yeah, that was brilliant. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear from the players. And don't get me wrong, I can't say anything about ESL One, but even if I'm not doing it, or even if I am, I always try and make sure that I actually agree with the content we're doing and how we're gonna do it. And I want to feel proud of what we're bringing, and I think that there's room for improvement with Gfinity. I hope that people out there will actually give them feedback, because let's be serious, it's their first real event in CS:GO. They've done Call of Duty before a little bit. They've done a lot of Call of Duty. They've done a little bit of League here and there, and they've tested the waters. Don't just sit there and give them all this negative spiel where it's just completely self-righteous. I know best. I've seen several tournaments better than this. Blah, blah, blah. Give them constructive feedback. Don't just bitch it out. Like, that's the one thing I hate. It's like, you guys want to improve the scene a lot. I love that passion. I love that mentality. It's perfect. But just put it in a coherent way. You don't have to be there like all nicey, but just put it in a way that will help them. Like, okay, I thought your group structure didn't really work. Generally, this is how we see it coming through in CS. This is the reason why. I think we could have avoided X situation, and the content would have improved X amount. Just constructive stuff. The way it should be done, and I think we could improve so much more from that, because in complete honesty, I think we missed out on a lot of good stuff just because maybe they're not as up to date on how we do things in mostly PC friendly games. They are used to the console scene. It's a little bit different there. I'm not saying that it's like this kind of Neanderthal style place, but they're not as demanding as us. They don't have the weekly shows that we've had to kind of smooth out all these things. It's not the same. Even in the Call of Duty console finals, for example. Wow, Kucha. It's very different. They don't push the boundaries. And the soundproof booths, I was having a little giggle at. They were the least soundproof things I've ever seen in my life. But Kucha about to get an ace, maybe. Woo! But still, I think the one thing I want to say is, if you genuinely joined in and you enjoyed the content through Gfinity, you had some feedback, find a good place to put it out. Don't just put up a thread somewhere. Don't just, chime in on Reddit with like yeah, it was really bad, I hated it. Don't just do that. Like, come on. You guys are smarter than this. Use your brains. Get involved. Send some feedback, because it's good for the scene. It's good for the community. Don't just sit there and hope someone else does it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to speak to Martin, and I'm going to try and give a little feedback here and there, mostly about the talent. I think I'd try and do it, within what I feel most comfortable with. I'm not saying I'm a better caster than them. I'm saying that I think they could have used this, the duos a little better, how they, work together. And I like the way that they took a risk on a couple of different pickups as well, though. So, there's certainly negatives and bonuses, but I'm hoping the community can actually do the decent thing here, give them good feedback, and don't just sit there and hope that someone else will do it. Because, at the end of the day, if we all sit there and we do give them feedback and we do try and push it, if next time it comes around and it's just as bad, then don't watch it. Shit, that's that's completely fine. But you know, would you rather say you at least tried to make it better? Rather than just like, oh, this could have been great. Okay, well, what did you do to improve it? You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that rather than us all just being negative and just hoping that it changes, it'd be good to be us, be active, be the smart community that I know we can be, and actually go out there and try and get involved a little bit and try and give them some feedback and be like, okay, guys, I love the intent, but let's get this working out a little smoother right here because you know the content was there, and I'd like to hear from the teams as well, like how actually the event felt itself. Like I know at ESL generally we're um, pretty good to the teams in the way we kind of use the setup, um, but I'd like to see if they did something similar. Like you couldn't see much of the players, that was the thing. So, but yeah, all in all, I just hope we use our feedback in a good way and we get involved in a good way because Gfinity are still new to this; they're still learning, and to speed up that process, you have to get there, to help them out. So that's my one little rant of the day. I'm gonna leave this on the half once it gets there. But yeah, it's pretty much just a kind of discussion as to what kind of feedback I would like to get. And it's like even I got some criticism, like, "Oh, why are you getting involved in CS:GO? You only turn up when it's an ESL event." It's like that's because I work for them. What do you want me to do? Like, hey, look, company I work for. I'm not going to attend work for like a week because I'm going to external events that will pay me money but not you. Is that cool? It's not quite how it works. Like priority comes from internalize shows for ESL, and then I can look externally. And to be honest, why would they pick someone who lives out in Germany when they had like a full team of play-by-play casters as well? Like they had Tosspot, Anders, Kaya Knight to an extent, Chewy. That's four play-by-plays. You don't need five. Geez, get some analysis in there, or be willing to use players instead. I don't need to be there. That's the thing. I have a full-time job, and it's good that they're using people from the community. That's what gets people kind of learning in the scene. But people think there's always like a reason to stuff. People always think there's like a ulterior motive, and it's completely untrue. Like I put up a thread about, I enjoyed Henry G and Tosspot's casting as a duo because I did. I thought they were a great combination. I enjoy new analysis when it's there. But people are like, oh, you're just trying to get back into the CS scene. Why have you reappeared? Oh, are you trying to be relevant? I've been around for a while, alright? The funny thing is, okay, I'm not the old school CS caster. I'm no Joe Miller. I'm no, none of these guys. But I'm pretty one of the original CSGO casters that actually did start casting this game. Before I got popular, before I was like, oh, this has potential to be great. I was casting this going, oh, it's a new FPS game. Awesome. Let me see if it's actually any good. Doing iSeries, Copenhagen Games, Epic Lands. Before half these teams even came across to CS. It was just basically NIP going, hey, this game looks like it'll be lucrative. And it's just like, guys, come on, let's take a step back here and be real honest about intentions within esports. Everyone thinks, the guys casting that event were doing it for free and, it was all love and fun. It's like, come on. Come on now. Come on. I know that they're your community darlings, but it doesn't work that way. Everyone's getting paid. Everyone's in it for the money. Stop thinking it's anything else. I love the naivety and some people think that, X caster is only in it for the money, but Y caster does it for the love. It's like, I'm not so sold. I'm not calling out names, but everyone's got their reasons. Anyway, before we go down that route, I think we're going to end this here. But yeah, basically the thing I wanted to say is, please give your feedback to Gfinity in a constructive and good way, in a competent way, so they can actually improve, rather than just pointing fingers and being like, hey guys, you guys weren't as good as DreamHack was, and come on, like we're a smart community of people. Let's actually act that way. And I'm hoping we can see something like that from the community. So yeah, rant over. I enjoy G3. I think there's improvements to be made, and I'm hoping we can see them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just a quick like kind of little discussion rant while everything's going on, and I thought I'd kind of put this out there. And I'll have some more videos coming out soon. I just thought I'd put this one up for now, just to kind of have a little talk through it. But yeah, all right, guys, peace out.